Hello, will we see the end of US dollar as has been forecasted by many analysts? Ever since I started trading Forex, each year expert opinion is forecasting the end of US dollar. But the US dollar keeps going from strength to strength, reaching record highs. In this video, I shall look at the strengths and weaknesses in this argument. The US dollar today is the uncrowned king of the financial world. This means that the dollar does not face much of competition from other currencies. However, that does not mean that the US dollar is invincible. Many countries are tired of United States imposing its military and financial might on the rest of them. Other countries have to work and trade to earn the dollars, whereas the United States can simply print, and it is all for free. In past, efforts were made to topple the dollar, but without much success. Currently, there is a lot of talk on the formation of a Brics currency as an alternative to the US dollar. Will this happen? And if it does, will it be a success? We discuss the pros and cons of this argument. Before we go into the presentation, just a brief introduction about myself. My name is Lakhani. I'm a financial markets trader, author of several books which are available on. In addition to that, I also share my wisdom by creating YouTube videos. Most of my videos are based on my own real-life experiences. An international currency is supposed to be neutral. Now, if Washington does not like you, what do? They put sanctions on you, and you cannot use the US dollars. And this we have seen happen recently with Russia. In past, we have seen that happen with Afghanistan and Iran. Many of the economies of the world are worried the power USA has. So many countries are looking to reduce their dollar reliance. I personally believe that for now, and at least for the next 50 years or so, the end of dollar dominance might be misplaced. The dominance of dollar combined with the advanced digital tools of the surveillance and analysis gives the US government unprecedented insight into the functioning of the international economy. This allows the United States to precisely employ sanctions against opponents. Currently, the Asian economies as a whole, that is the area from the Arabian Peninsula and Turkey in the west to Japan and New Zealand in the east, and from Russia in the north and Australia in the south, account for over 65% of global economic growth and 50% of the global GDP. And this has been rising at a fast pace in the past decade. Currently, China and India account for nearly 35% of the world economic growth, whereas the economic growth in the G7 country has slowed down in the past decade. In addition, China and India are the largest trade partners for nearly 150 countries. It is therefore natural that these countries would use their currencies to settle trade and other financial transactions. However, as I said before, the US has been misusing the privilege, using it to build a formidable military force in enforcing and maintaining the American supremacy. Any nation seen as a threat to its global hegemony would be threatened with military force or sanctions. The number would likely increase because of China's fast expanding trade relationship with countries participating in its Belt and Road Initiative. Nations that are threatened, Iran for example, could see its oil export rise by reaching an agreement with buyers using each other's currency or some other mutually acceptable medium of exchange. The current war between Russia and Ukraine, could this end the dollar dominance? Don't bet on it. A flurry of heavy-handed sanctions has isolated Moscow, but this has led to skyrocketing energy prices, which then led to a massive inflation in the world. At well over 600 billion US dollars, Russia sits on one of the largest currency and gold reserves. But much of that money is now useless in face of the tough sanctions. To ensure that Russia loses the war against Ukraine, or at least dented, the West continues to pump billions of dollars in military aid to Ukraine. I personally believe this war can be ended in just one day. How? The West stops military aid and Ukraine to state that it will be neutral and not join the NATO. I believe Russia would simply end the war. But is it in the interest of the West to do this? Because they want to keep the conflict going. Sadly, Ukraine is being used only for the continuation of Western hegemony. All Russia has been asking for is assurances that there will be no NATO member on its borders. Can you imagine a Russian ally with nukes on the border of USA? Well, we all know what happened during the Cuban crisis. So is the dollar's demise really as imminent as it seems? Not quite, and maybe not at all. Not for a long time. This is mainly due to the American military might. Cryptocurrencies are currently seen as a potential alternative. In recent days, digital tokens have been in strong demand despite the risk aversion. Russia and China have both huge holdings of various cryptocurrencies. Due to the fear of sanctions, it seems unlikely that any major economy would opt out of a global financial system that is based on a dollar dominance, at least for the moment. Imagine being able to run up a massive deficits every year, spend more on your military and government programs, enjoy cheaper interest rates on the debt, and still never worry about your currency collapsing because it is being used everywhere. That is the might of USA. Now imagine also being able to punish your enemies by cutting off access to this currency, making it illegal to transfer any money through the US banks. Some experts have called the punishment of Russia as a turning point in the financial history, predicting US rivals have new incentives to start using other currencies, especially after the US seized Afghanistan's assets following the Taliban takeover. Russia has complained bitterly for years about the US abusing the currency supremacy. So, is a change imminent? The US has worked to preserve its advantage. Recently, USA announced a study on developing a government-backed digital currency, and one of its stated objectives was to preserve the American role in the financial system. When two currencies are exchanged, the US dollar is involved nearly 90% of the time. You can't replace something until you provide a replacement. So the big question is there a replacement in sight? Not at the moment. For the past few years, there has been talk of Brics creating a new currency in the global markets to challenge the US dollar's supremacy. The alliance aims to uproot the US dollar from the world's reserve and replace it with the new Brics currency. If at all this happens, it may take several years. And if it is created, will it be a success? Of course, there will be lots of challenges, as there is no strong cooperation between the Brics members. Russia and China have border disputes. India and China have border disputes and they have fought a war. Plus, China openly supports India's arch rival Pakistan. This is just to contain the rise of India. Even if Brics currency could become a reality and starts to gain momentum, will USA ever let it be a success? Definitely no, based on the past experience. We have seen what the Big Brother has done in past to maintain its currency supremacy. For example, Saddam Hussein had decided not to trade oil using the US dollar. So the result was invasion of Iraq. The Iraqi oil is now being sold in US dollar. Secondly, we had the Libya's Gaddafi trying to set up an African gold dinar, a currency for Africa. To stop this happening, we had invasion of Libya and a regime change. Both Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi were killed. So what would USA do to counter a rise of India and China, or even the success of Brics? Same old military tricks. Military conflict in Asia. Firstly, a high probability that US could engineer a conflict between China and Taiwan, and or also between China versus India. Historically, USA has always been anti-India. In 1971, USA and UK were ready to launch a military operation against India. However, this conflict was averted only because the Soviet Union came to India's aid. So both the US and UK had to withdraw their warships, which were in the close proximity of India. But today things have changed. USA is getting closer to India. India is part of Code Group so as to counter China. USA previously never supported India with any defense equipments, but today it is transferring high-tech weapons to India, which is worth billions of dollars. So what might happen? A conflict will happen between the two Asian giants, India and China. And after the war, both these countries will be devastated. So the US and the European hegemony continues. This is what I think will happen in the next decade. The West will simply not allow Asia to take over that easily. So in conclusion, I cannot see the end of US dollar for a long time. Unless, of course, there is a very strong brotherly cooperation between Russia, China, and India, which is highly unlikely. I hope that this presentation was useful. Feel free to like, comment, and share, as your support will be appreciated. God bless. Ending with prayers for a world peace. Namaste.